Good day. This is going to be a short video on a discrete topic, which is the hack of the Colonial pipeline, which has caused so much disruption in the United States. Now, there's been some attempts by certain people to attribute this hack with its attendant problems on the Russians. It seems fairly clear that the people who actually carried out the attack were cyber criminals. It's not impossible that they used Russian hacking tools. They might even be based in Russia, but it's inconceivable that they were the Russian authorities themselves. Moreover, these individuals, whoever they are, and I suspect that before very long the United States will know, it's clear that these cyber criminals were able to extort a ransom of $5 million from the company that operates the Colonial pipeline, with this money being paid to them in untraceable cryptocurrencies. That is a disastrous precedent, by the way. If this thing succeeds, if this crime is able to be carried out in this way, and the people who carried it out are able to get away with it, then others will no doubt conclude that they can attack important parts of the US infrastructure in exactly the same way and extort ransom payments in the same fashion. I hope and expect that they will be caught and will be identified, and I would hope that the US authorities are giving this the proper focus and are cooperating with the relevant law enforcement authorities around the world to see that these people who did this thing are brought to account. Anyway, that's not the point of my video. The point of my video is this. This was a bunch of criminals who carried out an attack on US national infrastructure with devastating effect. There have been shortages of gasoline across the United States. This has caused serious problems. It might even affect US economic figures. And what it does is that it highlights the rickety state of a lot of the United States' infrastructure. Now, I mentioned this because a few weeks ago, shortly after the new administration took office in Washington, there were reports that the US administration was planning some sort of cyber attack on Russia in retaliation for the SolarWinds hack. And a few years before, in the last year of the Obama administration, we learned that the Obama administration had placed cyber bombs underneath or within the infrastructure, the Russia's infrastructure, which could be detonated at any point in time where there was some sort of crisis between the US and Russia. And we've heard all sorts of claims from US officials about US mastery in this type of cyber warfare, of US skill in conducting cyber warfare on this scale, and US superiority over other countries in cyber warfare techniques. And the United States has also, up to now, resisted repeated calls from various countries, but most notably from Russia, for there to be a treaty between the great powers regulating the use of cyber warfare, and for all the great powers to come together to act in concert to act against cyber criminals wherever they are and whatever they have done. The United States has always resisted that, in part on the grounds that it is so superior in cyber warfare techniques, doesn't really need to come to these kind of agreements. Well, what this incident with the Colonial pipeline surely has demonstrated is how complacent these beliefs some people in the United States have um, actually are. It turns out that even criminals can cause serious damage to US infrastructure by carrying out cyber attacks against it. Just imagine what a powerful country, one with immeasurably greater cyber resources than a criminal gang has, would be able to do if they decided to launch a cyber attack on the United States. Russia, China have cyber resources which dwarf those of any criminal organization. And I suspect that's true of other countries also with which the United States is in conflict, such as specifically North Korea, which is known to have a very effective and efficient cyber warfare division to its armed forces. So the United States, far from being invulnerable to cyber warfare, as we have seen, is acutely vulnerable to it. I'm not saying that other countries are less vulnerable. There's been a recent cyber attack on an Iranian nuclear facility at Natanz, which, by the way, I think was extremely reckless and foolish, and which I intended to say more about shortly. But the fact remains that even if other countries, Iran certainly, North Korea possibly, Russia, China, no doubt, are also vulnerable to cyber attack, then so it turns out is the United States. Any idea that the United States has supremacy in this field, that it can launch cyber attacks and not suffer any consequences, is clearly wrong and no doubt reckless. Given that this is so, the United States needs to reconsider these proposals that have been coming from other major powers, and especially from Russia, about negotiating and agreeing a cyber treaty. It seems to me this is overwhelmingly in its own interests to do. I am going to say that even though I suspect that other countries like Russia, China, Iran, undoubtedly, North Korea, quite probably, are vulnerable to US cyber attack, overall, their societies are probably less vulnerable than the United States is. This is because United States computer infrastructure, I'm going to guess, is fairly old, precisely because it is the United States which pioneered all these technologies. So other countries which came to this later than the United States did have developed their infrastructure, perhaps using more advanced software than the United States has done, and perhaps with greater heed of the risks of cyber attack than the United States has done. So the United States really does not want to get, it seems to me, into a war with other countries which involves cyber attacks. And an agreement for a cyber treaty is overwhelmingly in its interests. Now, we know that the Russians, as part of the discussions for this summit meeting between Biden and Putin that the Biden-Harris administration proposed, have been pressing for some move towards a treaty on cyber warfare. And President Putin of Russia has recently confirmed this, and so has Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Lavrov, by the way, is due to meet US Secretary of State Tony Blinken on the fringes of the forthcoming Arctic Summit, where they will be discussing this attempt to set up a summit meeting between Biden and Putin in June. as well as talking about, no doubt, about other things. I am sure that Lavrov is going to raise this question of the cyber treaty with Blinken, and I know for a fact that the Russians are raising it in their discussions with the Americans in advance of that summit and want it to be an agenda at the summit. I know that for a fact because the Russian media have been talking about it. So I think this episode with the Colonial Pipeline ought to concentrate some minds in Washington. It's high time that the United States accepted the reality that it is not invulnerable to cyber attack and negotiates seriously, not just with the Russians, but with all the major powers on this issue. I think if that happens, if there's a general agreement about how to use these cyber weapons and restrictions on their use, and perhaps also an agreement about tracking, countries cooperating and tracking and bringing to justice cyber criminals who engage in the kind of attack we've just seen on the Colonial Pipeline. Well, if that happens, then it will be an entirely good thing, not just for the whole world, but for the United States specifically. Anyway, that's all I want to say about this particular issue. It seems to me what I'm saying is blindingly obvious, but it surprised me and has concerned me that nobody seems to be bringing it up. And I thought I would therefore make my own views about it entirely clear. Thank you for joining me for this program. Please check out our main channel where you'll find programs that I make with my colleague and friend Alex Christoforou. Please also check out Alex's channel. You'll find links under this video. Please check us out on our other platforms, Odyssey, SuperTube, and Locals. And please also support us to the extent that you can via Patreon, Subscribestar, and PayPal. You will find links under this video, and I should quickly add that I realize obviously that these are hard times for many people, but if you can provide us with a donation, well, that's always gratefully received, however small the amount, and please remember that we accept donations and payments in all currencies, including the new electronic ones. Lastly, don't forget to check out our shop and look at the wonderful things we have there, our Duran mugs, our t-shirts, our hats, our hoodies, and all the rest. And of course, check out our Discord server too. And thank you for joining me for this program, and I look forward to you joining me in future programs on this channel and on our other channels, and have a wonderful day until then.